I was there the day the princess disappeared. I saw it with my own eyes, but nobody believed me. It was the kind of thing people whispered about in dark corners, saying, it's the cause of the Forbidden Lake. The Forbidden Lake was not far from our village. It was a dark, quiet place surrounded by thick trees. The elders told us stories about it when we were children. They said spirits lived there, spirits that didn't like humans coming too close. They said anyone who dared to break the rules would vanish forever. Nobody in our village dared to go there, nobody, that is, except Princess Adis. Princess Adis was not like other people. She was brave, too brave if you ask me. She didn't like rules, especially the ones that didn't make sense to her. And the rule about staying away from the Forbidden Lake. She hated it. How can a lake hurt anyone, she would say, laughing. But the rest of us knew better. We stayed away. It was on a hot afternoon when everything changed. I was in the forest, not far from the lake, gathering firewood. That's when I heard it, a scream. It was sharp and sudden, cutting through the still air like a knife. My heart pounded as I dropped my bundle of sticks. The scream came from the direction of the lake. I ran toward the sound, my feet crunching leaves and snapping twigs. As I got closer, I saw her, Princess Adis. She was standing at the edge of the lake, her royal wrapper flowing in the breeze. Her back was to me, but I could see her hands stretched out in front of her. She was reaching for something, or someone. Princess. I called, my voice shaky. What are you doing? She didn't turn around. Instead, she stepped into the water. Just one step, but it was enough to make my stomach twist. Come back. I shouted. It's dangerous. Still, she didn't listen. She took another step, and then another, until the water reached her knees. That's when I saw it. Something in the water moved. At first, I thought it was a fish, but then I saw the shape. It was long and dark, like a shadow, but it moved too quickly to be just a shadow. Princess, please. I begged, tears stinging my eyes. She finally turned to look at me, and I never forget her face. Her eyes were wide, and there was something strange about them. It was as if she was looking at me but not really seeing me. Her lips moved, but I couldn't hear what she was saying. Then, in one swift motion, the shadow in the water rose up. It wasn't a shadow at all. It was a hand, long and bony, with fingers that looked like tree roots. It grabbed her leg and pulled her under. I screamed and ran to the edge of the lake, but by the time I got there, she was gone. The water was still again, as if nothing had happened. But I knew what I saw. The Forbidden Lake had taken her. I ran back to the village, shouting for help. People gathered around me as I tried to explain what happened, but nobody believed me. They said I must have imagined it. They said the princess was probably hiding somewhere, playing one of her tricks. But deep down, I knew the truth. The next day, a search party was sent to the lake. They combed the area, calling her name, but they found nothing. Not a single trace of her. The elders shook their heads and muttered about the spirits. They told us to stay away from the lake, now more than ever. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. The village tried to move on, but I couldn't. I couldn't stop thinking about what I saw. I started having nightmares, dreams where the bony hand reached out for me, pulling me into the cold, dark water. One night, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know the truth. I had to find out what happened to Princess Adis. So, I did the unthinkable. I went back to the Forbidden Lake. It was midnight when I arrived. The moon was high in the sky, casting a silver glow over the water. The air was cold, and the forest was eerily quiet. My heart was racing, but I forced myself to step closer to the edge. Princess. I called, my voice barely above a whisper. Are you here? For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the water began to ripple. My breath caught in my throat as I saw the same shadowy shape moving beneath the surface. This time, it didn't stay in the water. It rose up slowly, and I saw her. It was Princess Adis, but she wasn't the same. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, and her eyes glowed with an unnatural light. She looked at me and smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile that made my blood run cold. "You shouldn't have come here," she said, her voice echoing like 1,000 whispers. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. I was frozen in place as she stepped closer, her feet gliding over the water. "Why did you follow me?" she asked, tilting her head. "The lake doesn't let anyone leave." Her words sent a chill down my spine. I tried to speak, but no sound came out. She reached out a hand, and I saw that it wasn't a hand anymore. It was like the bony, root-like thing that had pulled her under. "You're one of us now," she said, her smile widening. And then everything went black. When I woke up, I was lying on the ground near the edge of the lake. The sun was rising, and the village's search party was there, shaking me awake. They said they'd found me unconscious and alone. They asked what happened, but I couldn't bring myself to tell them. Now, whenever I pass by the lake, I feel her eyes watching me from beneath the surface. I know she's still there, waiting. And I know one day, she'll come back for me. As time went on, strange things began to happen in the village. People reported hearing whispers at night, soft voices that seemed to come from nowhere. Children spoke of seeing shadows moving in the trees near the lake. Livestock went missing, only for their remains to be found near the water's edge. The elders gathered to discuss what to do. They decided to perform a ritual to appease the spirits of the lake. They brought offerings of food, cloth, and cowries, placing them carefully at the water's edge. The villagers prayed, sang, and begged for the lake to leave us in peace. For a while, it seemed to work. The whispers stopped, and the shadows disappeared. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. The lake had taken the princess, and it wasn't done with us yet. One night, I was woken by a sound outside my hut. It was a soft, melodic humming, like a lullaby. My heart raced as I got up and peeked through the window. There, standing in the moonlight, was Princess Adis. She looked just as she had the night she vanished, her translucent skin glowing faintly in the dark. "Come," she said, her voice soft but commanding. "Come with me." I knew I should stay inside, but something about her voice pulled me. It was like I had no control over my body. I opened the door and stepped outside. She smiled and held out her hand. I hesitated, but only for a moment. As soon as I touched her, the world around me faded away. The village, the trees, the stars, everything disappeared. I was back at the lake. The water was black and still, reflecting the moon like a giant mirror. Adis stood beside me, her hand still holding mine. She looked at me with those glowing eyes and said, "It's time to join us." Before I could respond, the water began to ripple. One by one, figures rose from the depths. They were people, or at least they had been. Their skin was pale and waterlogged, their eyes glowing like Adis. They surrounded me, their voices whispering in unison. "Join us," they said. "Be one with the lake." I tried to pull away, but their hands reached for me, cold and unrelenting. The last thing I remember was the feeling of the water closing over my head, the whispers growing louder until they were all I could hear. When I woke up again, I was back in my hut. The sun was shining, and everything seemed normal. But I knew it wasn't. I could feel it in my bones. The lake had marked me, and there was no escaping it. Now, I'm waiting. I don't know when it will happen, but I know the lake will call me back. And this time, I won't come back alone.